Thank you, Patta sir. Good evening to all. Welcome all for today's case discussion. For today's discussion, I have selected a case of an appendicular pathology. Though appendix is not that glamorous area as like a HPB surgery, but the case that we are going to discuss today is definitely a rare entity. Once in a while, we come across this problem, and we have to teach the postgraduates and students about the importance of this particular disease. And an untreated pathology like this can lead to a major problem, and the treatment of which is once again becoming more glamorous with the availability of technologies. So hope today's case will also be interesting, and we'll get the opinion from the seniors regarding their experience also. Now, let me start with a quiz question for the audience. Who is this person? He's a great authority. So towards the end, we can find the answer. The case history is like this. This was a middle-aged gentleman who presented with basically a pain in the right side of the abdomen, predominantly in the right iliac fossa, and some pain in the right lumbar and right upper quadrant. The pain was actually 1 month duration. It was a low-grade pain only, not a severe pain. He was not having any other GI symptoms. His appetite was normal. There was no weight loss. There was no altered bowel habits. No evidence of any GI bleed like melena or maroon color stools, suggesting GI malignancy. No history of fever or other constitutional symptoms. No family history of cancers. Comorbidities include diabetes and hypertension. Under control. On examination, patient was vitals were stable. Abdomen was soft. It was a soft abdomen, and there was a mild tenderness in the right iliac fossa. No obvious mass that was palpable. So that was the clinical scenario, and the blood investigation showed a normal CBC. A hemoglobin was 12.8 grams. LFT and RFT were normal. His sugars were under control. Diabetic status was under control. His HbA1c was 7%. Now, he came with an ultrasound report. Ultrasound showed multiple gallstones, but there was no evidence of cholecystitis. Gallbladder wall thickness was normal. The liver was normal. IHBR, common hepatic duct, and CBD, everything was normal. Probably his right upper quadrant pain was because of cholelithiasis. It was a symptomatic cholelithiasis. The area of interest seems to be the right iliac fossa. The appendix, they mentioned that the appendix was grossly dilated. It was measuring more than 2 centimeters, but there was no evidence of any fluid collection or loculated collections in the right iliac fossa. That was the ultrasound findings. I don't have ultrasound pictures. That's the report that was given. And at this point, I just want to take the opinion, because most of the times we see patients only with an ultrasound and blood reports. So at this point, how to proceed further, and what are the initial thought process at the level of ultrasound?
Dr. Shankar, it appears to be something like a mucosal of the appendix.
Mucosal of the appendix. Okay, sir.
We should consider the possibilities of either residual after an appendicitis, or at this age, we should consider the possibility of tumor causing obstruction and mucosal.
Okay.
So I would like to do a CEA,
okay,
CT, and a colonoscopy, if colonoscopy is available.
So your diagnosis is a mucosal of the appendix, and you want to go for a CEA and colonoscopy.
Yes.
Okay.
And CT scan also.
And CT scan. Okay.
The pain that you're describing is a dull pain, or is it a severe pain on the right iliac fossa, stretching on the right lumbar and right hypochondrium?
Yeah, it was not a severe pain only. It was a dull pain only.
Yeah, so gallstone seems to be asymptomatic.
No, he was having some right upper quadrant pain also. So we can't. Of course, definitely the appendix was causing the problem, but gallstone could be asymptomatic.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's possible.
Of appendix. Sometimes we've seen carcinoid presenting as acute appendicitis.
Okay. Carcinoid. Okay.
Radhavan? Yes, sir. I think it's only ultrasound report showing a 2 centimeter size appendix. The first diagnosis is mucosal of appendix. Okay. Since there was no evidence of any inflammatory pathology, it has to be mucosal.
Okay.
But problem is mucosal can have other associated problem, like it may have some malignant transformation like mucinous cystadenosia, or it may be obstruction of the base of appendix by some tumors, etc.
Okay.
So since there was no evidence of appendicitis, I think better to go for a CT and a colonoscopy if there is other evidence of malignancy.
If I can ask here, what is the relevance of colonoscopy in this patient?
Yeah.
How does it help at all?
No, my investigation protocol is CT. Next one would be a CT.
Okay, CT, agreed, definitely.
And
But
if
how does
CT
colonoscopy
shows-
help?
Yeah, no, if CT shows some abnormal pathology in the base of appendix, colonoscopy will help, because sometimes the cecal growth can present like appendicular orifice obstruction and a mucosal without classical features of appendicitis. So, or sometimes the base of the mucosal, the appendicular mucosal may bulge into the colonoscope and colon, and it may be seen as a bulge on doing colonoscopy. I think Dr. Ubal may be knowing better.
Now, how many times have you seen that? How many times have you done that?
I have.
And
I
in
have
an
seen-
acute abdomen with an appendicular pathology, how many times have you done colonoscopy?
No, this is not acute abdomen. This is actually a patient with a some sort of a chronic abdominal pain, because he never presented with acute.
I'll ask Kannan, then we'll go to Madam Jayanti and Ubal. Kannan?
It doesn't look like acute appendicitis. So we have to rule out the mucosal of the appendix. First, I do a CT only.
Okay. Sir. Okay.
Colonoscopy if needed.
That's a very safe thing. What if it be needed, Kannan?
If possible, I would do.
Hmm.
I wouldn't take a chance.
Okay.
What do you expect to see in a colonoscopy?
Maybe a ulcerated growth in the base of appendix.
Ubal?
So, how sensitive the ultrasound for the appendix? Because I'm not very sure. Because sometimes the dilated ileal loops also can looks like an appendix. So here the question will be 1 month old with the history of right-sided pain. Both he had a gallstones as well as something in the appendicular region. So the next choice of investigation will be an CT before going for a colonoscopy. Colonoscopy will help only if there is a pathology in the cecum. Appendicular orifice sometimes we can see, but not all the time. Or if any pathology with associated with the ileum and cecum, like ileocecal tuberculosis, those kind of situations, again we can do a colonoscopy. And mucosal of appendix, I don't think colonoscopy will have any much of help. And I think CT will be the next ideal choice.
Okay.
Madam?
CT.
CT. Pata sir, your opinion?
No, I'll stand with CT. I don't think I'll do any blood investigations, any tumor markers, or just that's a blind attempt to do something. Colonoscopy also, because what will colonoscopy show? If there's anything, any pathology in the cecum, I mean, which is very unusual actually in this sort of patient mucosal appendix. How many times we operate mucosal appendix? If there is something obviously seen in a CT, then we'll think of a colonoscopy. Otherwise, I will not consider colonoscopy. I don't think it will add anything, not even blood.
Okay.
So
all of you agree on going for a CT as the next modality. So that was actually patient came with a CT. CT was just showing some representative cuts only. CT they have done with the oral and IV contrast. I'll just concentrate on the right iliac fossa area. You can see the right psoas muscle there. You can see the iliac vessels. Anterior to the psoas muscle, you are able to see a dilated cystic structure there. There is no evidence of any free fluid. There is no evidence of any inflammatory stranding. Cecum seems to be appearing normal only. And some coronal cuts, you can see the cecum is reasonably normal. You can see the base of the appendix is slightly dilated, and there is a bulbous enlargement of somewhere in the tip of the appendix. The right iliac fossa seems to be very clean. There is no stranding, inflammatory stranding. There is no collection. And another coronal section for you. You can see the cecum, and there is no appendicolith, and only it seems to be an appendix that is distended with fluid. And it seems to be a bulbous appendix. In the tip of the appendix is bulbous. The measurement was around, it was around 3 centimeters on CT scan. So that was the CT findings for you. So should we do a colonoscopy at this point, or we can proceed with treatment?
No, now I don't think there is.
We'll start with Bhaskaran and then Prathapan, and we'll
Like to have a CEA to see, and perhaps colonoscopy. There is no major harm, because in case you happen to see a small tiny lesion, then it will be useful for you to take a biopsy and plan your surgery after that.
Okay. So you want to do a colonoscopy?
And a CEA, yes.
CE, okay. Prathapan?
Sir, that CT shows a small calcific or some hyperdensity in the base region of the appendix.
Okay.
I think it's obviously a small, you can see a small lesion there, maybe a stone or something, and it is producing obstruction, and it is not extending to the cecum. So at least I think there is no associated growth in the cecum.
Okay.
So the CT is enough. I think we can proceed.
Okay. So,
Kanan?
Shankar, there is some other section where there seems to be some little thickening at the base, some soft tissue.
so that's actually this is the cecum, sir.
Yeah.
You can see the base of the appendix.
And there is some adjacent area, the small little thickening. We don't know what it is. Not the margin, where is the junction? At the junction.
Here.
Yeah.
But there is no, there is no obvious growth or anything like that. And the CT was also reported as, cecum was reported as normal only.
Kanan?
Yeah, this I think with this picture, I don't think I would do a colonoscopy. I would straight away go for surgery.
Okay, sir. Okay.
And Shankar,
Yes, sir.
my take with this picture, then I have to sit with the patient's relatives and talk about appendicectomy bar right hemicolectomy, frozen section, and then that is the only thing I'll do differently as compared to a simple appendicular pathology, because in this patient, if the base of the appendix shows some sort of a mucinous steno CA or something of that nature, then maybe it should be ready to go in for a right hemi. I mean, that is the only difference when it comes to it.
So you will discuss with the patient regarding
Yes.
appendicectomy bar
Yes.
right hemicolectomy. Okay.
Yes.
Why not a cecectomy, Radha?
Pardon?
Why not a cecectomy? Remove the appendix with cecum.
Limited resection.
No. Is there any procedure of that nature, Bhaskar? Cecectomy, I never heard before.
Take a margin. Instead of margin, you knock out a cecum.
No. See, I don't think anything of that sort is there in literature, because we do, I remember Dr. once, Dr. Surendran was mentioning the quarter colectomy, like hemicolectomy, quarter colectomy, but quarter colectomy is applicable for benign conditions like ileocecal tuberculosis or an appendicitis where, the cecum is damaged, where, you can't take a bursting, etc. Those are times you can go quarter colectomy. But if it's a mitotic thing, I think a limited resection is unlikely. You have to think of
No, I don't think so. If it's not malignant, a removal with a margin.
if it's not malignant, like any conventional appendectomy.
Okay. So is it laparoscopy or open surgery, sir?
I'll attempt laparoscopy, definitely. We have done quite a few.
Okay. So actually,
we'll have other.
Yes, sir. I think laparoscopy prefers. He has a gallbladder stones as well, so we can tackle both laparoscopy.
No, but should we deal with gallstones at all?
Sir, the issue is this patient basically is going for a surgery, a general anesthesia. We don't know, he had right upper quadrant pain along with the right lower quadrant pain. So the symptomatology wise, he needs a treatment for gallstones as well. Okay. I think we have to do. The problem is the role of right hemicolectomy in a mucosine. I think even if there is mucinous cystadenocarcinoma, if the base of appendix is free, I think there is no need for an extensive right hemicolectomy.
No,
Because
I agree. If base is free, it doesn't come in. If base is not free, is only the point. Karan?
Yeah, first I would like to do cholecystectomy also and do a limited right hemicolectomy.
Why limited means?
No, I will not go extensive like to the to the transverse colon level. We can go short of it also.
No, why not? Whenever I have a mucosa like this, my policy is to staple across the cecum and send it for frozen and wait for it. If you think it's an adenocarcinoma, maybe we can convert it into a right colectomy to remove the nodes. Otherwise, that's enough.
Bhaskaran sir, what you are telling is, suppose you are doubt about the base, then you can take a cup of cecum. If the base is all right, you can still finish up with appendix.
The whole thing is thickened. You
Okay.
don't feel anything. Yeah, the whole thing is tense. You can't really feel that there's a mass or anything.
Okay. So,
Shankar, if I vaguely remember, if the size, if anything more than 2 centimeters, there's a chance of malignant neoplasm.
That's correct.
I feel.
Yeah.
In that case, I think a colonoscopy is, as Pratap and everybody is saying, that because the choice of surgery is going to be, if it is a malignancy, I think, as Pata is saying, right hemicolectomy, because we all know that it's a low-grade malignancy.
Yeah.
The best possible surgery will be a right hemicolectomy. So, I think a colonoscopy before a surgery is, because of the size of the thing, I think it is, malignant potential is high.
Okay.
if colonoscopy shows a bulge, definitely you can ask for a right hemicolectomy rather than attempting an appendicectomy.
The two things, Pradhaban. First of all, how a size of a mucocele and colonoscopy are correlated, I do not know. If it's more than 2 centimeters, I'll do a colonoscopy.
No.
If there is literature support, I do not know. Second thing is, the bulge will depend upon where the appendix is located. If it's retrocecal, you'll see a bulge. If it's retroileal, where will you see a bulge? How are you going to decide on a bulge through a colonoscopy?
So the bulge cannot be related to the tip at all. It may be related to the base. It may prolapse into the cecum. We have seen 2 cases where the colonoscopy is diagnosed the mucocele rather than the CT
No, that's
diagnosed.
okay. That is a different.
So I think occasionally we see cases.
No, because what I'm wondering is whether there is a rationale behind doing a colonoscopy in these patients.
Now, actually, what Ubal is saying is given in the literature. The indications of doing a right hemicolectomy for a mucocele of the appendix is, number one, if the base is not free, you have to go for a right hemicolectomy. Number 2 is, they say size criteria of 2 centimeters. That's given there. But I'm not sure whether it's absolute or relative indication.
2 centimeters of what?
The size of the mucocele. Size of the mucocele, if it is more than 2 centimeters.
Or anywhere.
Pardon, sir?
Is it anywhere more than 2 centimeters? Because it will vary. Some places it may be 3, some places it may be 1.5.
We are talking about the maximum size.
Maximum.
Maximum size it is.
Technically,
I don't think
at the bottom.
that is in
Okay.
the base agreed.
Yeah. And third point is, if it is a ruptured mucocele, then you have to go for a not only right hemicolectomy, some other major surgery also. Yeah. So this patient, I'll tell you the intraoperative findings. Actually, the base of the appendix, you can see which was ligated. It was looking, base was looking normal. There was no evidence of any mucus extravasation around the appendix. The periappendixal area was not having any mucus. So only thing is, we could not do a classical appendicectomy. We have to do a retrograde appendicectomy. We just ligated the base first and we removed the appendix along with the mucocele. The only thing is, when you do this particular procedure, you should make sure that you don't rupture the mucocele. Then it becomes a complicated problem. So this is for the postgraduates. Whenever you do a surgery for a mucocele of the appendix, if already it has not ruptured, then you have to make sure that you are doing an appendicectomy without rupturing. Once it ruptures, then appendicectomy alone may not be sufficient. So that's the point that you have to.
Shankar, here,
Yes, sir.
I mean, there was an occasion not very long ago of some mucus here and there on laparoscopy.
Yes.
in a patient with, sort of a ruptured. Now, what procedure would you go for peritonectomy?
No, yes, sir. Actually, no.
Actually, the histopath, if it shows that there is no mitosis, then what will you do?
The situation that you are telling is, suppose you see extravasated mucus outside the appendix.
Ruptured mucosal.
Yeah, that's
but
ideal.
no mitosis.
No, you will not have mitosis because it's a low-grade appendicular neoplasia. That's why I'm going to talk in the literature theory. I'm going to talk a few slides. You will not have great mitosis. It's a low-grade appendicular mucinous neoplasm, and if it has ruptured, then you have to go for a right hemicolectomy with cytoreductive surgery with HIPEC. That's the best treatment because that's the best chance to offer probably a cure or a long-term survival. If you think that just mucus here and there, that means it's indication for going for a radical procedure. If you don't see extra appendicular mucin, that's fine.
No, but, okay, we'll come to literature and see how literature supports it.
Yeah. So that was the thing that was removed, and you can see that's a specimen, sir. We also did a cholecystectomy. You can see the gallbladder there with stones. That's the appendix. The base was tied off, and the base and tip were looking fairly normal, but only in the middle part it seems to be a thing. And we were happy about this. We are happy about this appendicectomy as a treatment for this particular patient. And the histology also came as the classical low-grade appendicular mucinous neoplasm. So that was and we were following up this patient. This patient was not having any evidence of pseudomyxoma peritonei or anything in the follow-up. So very rarely you get an appendicular mucosal which has not ruptured. So you have to use an opportunity to do, if the base is free, you have to do an appendicectomy without rupturing it, and that will make a lot of difference as far as the outcome is concerned. Now, before I get the panelists for giving their some more opinion, I just want to finish up some theoretical points. Basically, appendicular mucinous neoplasm is a rare neoplasm. In fact, only less than 1% of the cancers are mucinous neoplasm of the appendix. And if you are going to talk about what percentage of your appendicectomy specimen is reported as a mucinous neoplasm is just 0.3%, which means out of every 300 appendicectomies, only one appendix will come as histologically, it will come as a mucinous neoplasm. That's the reason why all appendix should be sent for histopathological examination. You should not throw it away. Of course, the older terminologies for this is the mucosal is only a clinical terminology. It is no more used. The other terminologies that are previously used is called cystadenoma or cystadenocarcinoma. Now we use what is called as appendicular mucinous neoplasm, and there are different classifications for this appendicular mucinous neoplasm. And the greatest important point that students should remember is that a ruptured low-grade mucinous neoplasm of the appendix leads to an entity called pseudomyxoma peritonei, and which manifests itself as large quantities of mucin filling the peritoneal cavity. Even if you see small quantity, once again it tells that it needs aggressive surgery. Now there are two entities which you have to differentiate. One is called as DPAM, which stands for disseminated peritoneal adenomucinosis. This is nothing but pseudomyxoma peritonei. It carries a very good prognosis. If you offer an aggressive surgery, it carries a very good prognosis. Whereas there is another entity called peritoneal mucinous carcinomatosis. This is like any other disseminated peritoneal malignancy where you don't have good prognosis. So basically what you have to differentiate is, are you dealing with a low-grade mucinous neoplasm of the appendix, or you are dealing with an adenocarcinoma of the appendix with mucinous differentiation which has peritoneal disease. So there are two entities which we have to differentiate. And the DPAM is nothing but pseudomyxoma peritonei. A few words about that. Pseudomyxoma peritonei is a rare entity. I think all of us will have couple of cases we have seen in a clinical practice. there is a progressive abdominal distension. Abdomen is filled with full of jelly. It is called jelly belly. The primary can be very small. It can be very small, but the jelly can accumulate in large quantities within the peritoneal cavity. It typically affects the parietal peritoneum and the omentum. And for some reason, the small bowel and the small bowel mesentery are spared. We do not know the reason for that. And in the low-grade mucinous neoplasm of the appendix, the lymph node metastasis is just 2%. So there is no need for doing any radical procedure like right hemicolectomy for sake of lymphadenectomy, because lymph node involvement is not, it's only 2%. And visceral metastasis is also rare. These patients have only peritoneal disease. So if you can take care of the peritoneum thoroughly, you can offer long-term survival. It's a very indolent disease. Unlike a peritoneal carcinomatosis, a pseudomyxoma peritoneae is a very good, it has a very good prognosis. So that's how the treatment differs. When you appendicular mucinous neoplasm, you classify into LAM, LAMN, which is nothing but low-grade appendicular mucinous neoplasm, which means it's unruptured. The treatment is appendicectomy. Once it has ruptured, it produces an entity called DPAM. I told disseminated peritoneal adenomyosinosis, for which you have to go for debulking surgery in the form of cytoreductive surgery with HIPEC. Whereas if you have an entity called peritoneal carcinomatosis, then it becomes it carries a poor prognosis. So you'll have to go for neoadjuvant chemotherapy and see whether there is a response. And then some of these patients might benefit from cytoreductive surgery. This is another question for the postgraduates. A pseudomyxoma peritoneae patient finally succumbs due to the development of DASH. So they can fill in the blanks. How does a pseudomyxoma peritoneae patient finally dies? That's the precise reason. To prevent that complication only, we have to do the extensive procedures. And now I just want to show you a few cases which we have seen in our experience. And this is a patient who was a post-renal transplant patient, had some vague abdominal pain, and a CT was done, which picked up this kind of appendix. Once again, this was preoperatively reported as a mucocele of the appendix. As Bhaskaran sir was telling, in this case, we took a cuff of cecum because the base of the appendix was involved. So we just took a cuff of cecum with that. So margin was obtained. And histopathology, it was reported as only a low-grade LAM, low-grade appendicular mucinous neoplasm. So you can always tailor the treatment according to the pathology. But there was no extra appendicular mucin in this particular patient. This is another patient who presented with gross ascites, and ultrasound said clinically there was gross ascites, but ultrasound showed no free fluid. So we could, because it was full of jelly, it was not actually a free fluid which can be picked up on ultrasound. So CT was showing a gross ascites, and that's we did a diagnostic laparoscopy to plan our treatment. You can see the jelly that was sucked out of you can see how the appearance, full of jelly. And just a video of that pseudomyxoma peritoneae. Actually, the diagnostic laparoscopy helps in assessing the to obtain the peritoneal carcinomatous index and plan for your peritonectomy. And I want the opinion of the panelists regarding their experience of tackling pseudomyxoma peritoneae and their experience of doing peritonectomy and HIPEC for all these patients. So I stop here and I take the opinion of the panelists regarding their experience of managing pseudomyxoma peritoneae.
Dr. Shankar, one important thing in these people is classical scalloping.
Yes, sir.
And CT scan.
That's correct. Yeah.
Of pseudomyxoma peritoneae.
You are correct, sir. Absolutely correct. So CT scan will show scalloping of the liver. Yeah.
So I done quite a few of these debulking surgeries. Very painful, very annoying. It takes a long time, and though it looks very mucinous and jelly, some places there is oozing because you got to keep scraping surface from everywhere, and you will have to peel off liver capsule and diaphragm, etc., etc.
Okay.
And chemotherapy now it's much easier, and we also have machines now to give that HIPEC.
HIPEC, yeah.
In the olden days, my resident used to keep warming the fluid and keep pouring, etc., etc. Now things
Okay.
are much better.
Okay, sir.
Sir, I have a few points. One issue is when you have large appendicular collections, the initial ultrasound will show something like an abscess, appendicitis with collections, and these patients will go on getting the antibiotics, and somebody will diagnose it as a chronic abscess. So I have seen 2 patients diagnosed as chronic abscess. Then I saw the patient, I repeated the CT, and that was showing mucinous cystadenoCA. So misdiagnosis of appendicular abscess can actually delay the treatment and lead to dissemination of the tumor.
Okay.
That is one thing. Second, even if there is a large lesion, retrocecally when the appendicular mucosal goes up, or paracecally, your surgery is going to be difficult, because when the lesion becomes large, it will be exactly over the retroperitoneal major vessels and ureters, etc. So if you try to dissect it, sometimes it will rupture. So I think the mobilization has to be from medial to lateral. In such situation, you have to plan hemicolectomy rather than just dissecting the mucosal from the retroperitoneum.
Okay.
Third thing, regarding the pseudomyxoma peritoneae, we have seen cases, but since we don't have the machines, we use the Heartland machine used by the what do you call the for the extra the cardiothoracic surgeons. That machine we used for one case. I think now I have a patient who underwent surgery for pseudomyxoma peritoneae 5 years back. Now he developed a recurrence, a localized recurrence in the upper abdomen.
Yeah.
But we didn't do anything for that.
Actually, that's a classical, because normally when you have a peritoneal disease, these patients, they don't survive. Because pseudomyxoma peritoneae, patient will survive for 5 years, even more than that. Only thing, they develop a recurrent interstitial obstruction. The answer for the quiz question is, somebody has answered correctly. A pseudomyxoma peritoneae patient finally succumbs because of recurrent interstitial obstruction. So that's the reason why we have to do an aggressive surgery and clear the disease. And always you have to combine with HIPEC. And it has to be done properly with a machine. But anyhow, the machine availability is always a problem. That's why I want to know how did you manage? Because I think we take whatever cases that we are doing it, we are taking the machine for rent from some company, and they come and
Return price.
Yeah, and
1 lakh.
And cost is also a big problem. So there are 2 or 3 cases of pseudomyxoma peritoneae classical patients I have seen and diagnosed. I advised treatment with all the HIPEC, but due to logistic reasons, patient ran out, and I don't know whether they went to a government institution or logistic is a big problem, because machine itself, the rent costs you more than 1 lakh, and the surgery, as Bhaskaran sir was telling, it is a prolonged surgery. It will take maybe around 8 to 10 hours. You have to do it very meticulously, and actually it carries it's worth doing that procedure, especially in cases of the classical pseudomyxoma peritoneae. Now, this cytoreductive surgery and HIPEC has been extended now to colonic malignancy with peritoneal disease. Of course, there we have to make sure that the peritoneal carcinomatous index is low. Then only you can offer the benefit to the patient. And they are also now trying for some cases of carcinoma stomach and primary peritoneal malignancy like mesothelioma. So these are all the broad indications of peritonectomy. But the classical indication is pseudomyxoma peritoneum. Kannan sir,
Shankar, because these 2-3 cases you have seen, I remember that they used to do a right hemicolectomy when the size is large, and you are convinced that after appendicectomy, sometimes you are again going and doing a right hemicolectomy, depends upon the histopathology or not required.
No, see the so-called, basically we have to differentiate between 2 appendicular neoplasm. Number 1 is a low-grade appendicular mucinous neoplasm, which will not have any invasion. but they will keep on secreting mucus and the appendix will get distended. At one point it will rupture. And this patient is the classical pseudomyxoma peritoneum, where you have to be aggressive. You have to do a peritonectomy, which also includes right hemicolectomy. They carry very good prognosis. Whereas if you can have a appendicular adenocarcinoma, a regular, which is similar to a colonic adenocarcinoma, they carry a poor prognosis. If they present with peritoneal disease, it carries a poor prognosis. So basically, we have to differentiate, and histology only will differentiate what we are dealing with.
Harshini, you have a question? You came in between, Harshini. Yeah, Kanan.
Yeah, this patient, you see, all these things are, histopathology is only post-operative. We don't know whether we are dealing with adenocarcinoma or benign disease. So better to go for a right hemicolectomy rather than doing appendicectomy and then again converting to right hemicolectomy. That's my opinion.
Okay, sir. Okay.
The location of the lesion has some implication for your treatment planning. That is what I was telling. If the lesion is located in the retroperitoneal space, usually we have a tendency to mobilize the white line of Tolt, move the colon from the peritoneal attachment towards the midline. But in patients with a mucocele going behind the cecum, sometimes that can itself produce rupture of the lesion. So if you want to prevent rupture, you have to start a resection from the medial to lateral resection.
See, the thing of pseudomyxoma peritonei established is a very dirty disease. There's no proper planes. There's never like the surgery is complete. And we can never be satisfied that we've done a good job. And a number of these patients, they keep coming back, as Pradhaban says, once in 5 years. Initially they'll come after 5 years, then after that they'll come after 3 years, then after that they'll come after 1 year and then develop all this. But they live long.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly they live long, and we can always tell them that this is not a good. We can't get rid of this thing. It keeps slowly growing slowly, and then we need to deal with it. Now the issue of mucosal appendix is the problem. See, we had occasions. Now, if you see a patient who's got mucosal appendix and some free fluid in the abdomen, that's where the problem comes.
Correct.
And patient will not be very symptomatic as far as the free fluid. He does not look like peritonitis. It doesn't look like ruptured appendix. Quite often, you put a needle, nothing will come. Means you are in trouble. Means there's mucin.
Yeah.
So possibly at that point, you need to make up your mind that you have to go something very aggressive. But again, Shankar, for a patient, a very healthy, hale patient, it's just a appendicular swelling. Thinking of some radical surgery is not at all easy. You are thinking in terms of right hemicolectomy, cholecystectomy, omentectomy, peritonectomy, and hypec. I don't know how many. I mean, I will not have the heart to do that. Although you say because one, there is no obvious malignancy, and you only just see some mucus is come into the peritoneal cavity. So when there are occasions when we go in, suck the mucus, check whether that mucus has got any mitotic cells, then but I think that's not a right protocol. Again, it may not show any mitotic cells at all.
Yeah.
I think the lesson is that if there is mucin outside the appendix, treatment should be radical. It's what you say. Now, I just want to know from literature, radical versus non-radical, what is the difference?
No, sir. What they are telling is, suppose it is already the appendix has ruptured or perforated and mucus has accumulated in the right iliac fossa. You have to treat it like a pseudomyxoma peritonei, because though you might suck it out and do a right hemicolectomy or whatever it is, but that's not sufficient, because obviously the patient will come back after 1 year with distended abdomen and full of jelly. So though it will be very difficult to convince the patient for a radical procedure, but since now the biology and the course of the disease has been established very clearly, so we have to offer the treatment, we have to counsel, and we have to take that window of opportunity to provide the correct treatment for the patient. Though it looks little an overkill for...
It's not little overkill.
No, but yeah, you have to offer cytoreductive surgery. How much of peritoneectomy you do, that's the thing. You can always tailor it. Yeah.
Well,
Some
Jayanti madam has got something to
Yeah.
say.
If on a routine ultrasound or a CT you find an incidental mucocele, what will be the protocol? Patient asymptomatic?
we have to go for surgery, madam, because even if it's asymptomatic mucocele, that's the ideal time to, that will come under the low grade appendicular mucinous neoplasm, where you can your treatment will be appendicectomy without rupturing it, and that will be the treatment for the patient. And we have to confirm with histology. The pathologist will, yeah.
Does the size of the mucocele predict the occurrence of a pseudomyxoma? Peritonic? I mean, the larger the size, there's a chance of pseudomyxoma.
No, madam. So, nearly 30 to 40% of the appendicular mucinous neoplasm will present with a mucocele which has ruptured. Usually, these patients will present with an appendicular perforation, and there will be mucus collection. So,
But that perforation will be asymptomatic. I mean, you want it to not manifest like acute appendicitis.
no, they will manifest like appendicitis only, ma'am, because yeah.
Appendicitis.
Shankar, if while extracting a mucocele with whose base is free of tumor and you spill the mucin into the peritoneal cavity, is there any difference in treatment?
I mean,
Accidental spill.
for that, I don't think I can answer that, sir, because I'm not sure whether literature gives any recommendation in such situation. What is recommended is you should try to remove the appendix without rupturing it. If you have ruptured it, then it has to be treated like a appendicular mucinous extravasation only.
So, one doubt.
Yeah.
Is there any role for chemotherapy in the low-grade mucinous neoplasm if there is a rupture? Is there a difference between the adjuvant treatment protocol if there is no rupture, if there is rupture? Because mucinous cystadenosia can be a contained disease, or it can have some spillage due to your intraoperative manipulations.
Yeah.
So if there is no rupture, I think do we need to give chemo for all patients who had rupture? Unless otherwise there is no indication.
No, if there is no rupture, there is no need for adjuvant chemotherapy. Suppose you think in terms of some spillage or you have not cleared it, then there is a role for adjuvant chemotherapy.
Yeah, I have one patient. He was treated as appendicular abscess, and then he came to me. Then I did surgery. It was in the retrocolic area, and it was very difficult to dissect from retroperitoneal structures, psoas and other structures. So I did the hemicolectomy and removed that area, and there was some spillage. So I sent for chemotherapy, and they gave chemotherapy. But now he has no issues, but he may develop. I think he may develop peritoneal carcinomatosis rather than a pseudomyxoma.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are questions in the chat box, Shankar.
I think we have discussed
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Alvarado is the answer for the.
No, I think Alvarado is a scoring system for appendicitis.
Yeah, but the picture you put up in the beginning, some big shot.
No, that is Sugar Baker.
Oh, but Sugar Baker 40 years ago.
No, Paul Sugar Baker is authority in.
No, you're talking about a junior Sugar Baker, a senior Sugar Baker.
I'm not aware of. There are two Sugar Bakers. I do not know.
Yeah, father and son.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is a very younger picture.
No, he's a secretary of the peritoneal surface malignancy. There is a consortium.
Right. Yeah.
He's a secretary of that. I think should be a senior man. Probably a younger photograph. Yeah.
How many of you have the experience of peritonectomy IPEC procedure?
Sir, I told you, sir, a couple of cases we had pseudomyxoma peritoneum. I want to do that, and I explained everything to the patient, but for financial reasons, they didn't turn up. So I don't have any experience of doing a peritonectomy. Bhaskaran sir was telling.
Yeah, we do.
How did you? How much it costs, sir? The machine, everything, and how do you arrange the logistic?
There are two companies, I think 1.25 to 1.2, depending upon the competition availability.
Okay.
Earlier it was higher, now because there are more than two companies, the prices come down.
What drug, chemotherapy drug you use, sir?
That's up to they use phytomycin, epirubicin, something.
No.
So they come, the oncologists come, calculate and tell how much to give.
And we have to maintain a temperature of 42 degrees throughout the.
Yeah, that machine automatically does that.
So the machine. I mean, Prathapan was telling about using hot lung machine.
Yeah.
Actually, that is not a substitute for a HiPEC machine, because HiPEC machine maintains the temperature of 42 degrees mitomycin solution throughout the period of perfusion, and it has to be done with the two techniques. One is open abdomen and closed abdomen, and it should the fluid should chemotherapy should perfuse the entire peritoneal cavity, all the crevices, and I don't have I have not have experience of doing that, but I think oncologists are doing it.
We put 2 inflow and 2 outflow tubes.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you are around, you keep shuffling with your hands, but mostly you sit it on and go out. Go have your lunch and come back and eat.
Okay.
And this should be done before you do the anastomosis. Staple the ends, let it soak in the solution, and after that, once the surgery business is over, then you do the anastomosis, so that the ends of are out.
No, basically you'll have to plan this, because you have to get an equipment, you have to arrange the company person. So
Can I say something?
Yes,
Ravi
sir.
Shankar.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in Lilavati Hospital, our oncosurgeons have been using HiPEC, and I usually send my perfusionist. We use the heart lung machine. It costs much less, and we are able to do it. We've done quite a few cases. Dr. Jagannath is our oncosurgeon,
Okay.
leading authority, who's been doing it quite regularly. We
How do
don't
you-
get the machine
No.
from outside because
How do you maintain the temperature, sir?
we got a temperature module in any case with the heart lung machine also. It's a separate gadget which can move.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
with the-
possible.
And you have
Okay.
2 inflow, 2 outflow tubes. We maintain the temperature.
Yeah, if you can maintain the temperature.
Ravi Shankar sir, if this is so simple, why this is not being used elsewhere? Because in our hospital, HiPEC will cost about 10 lakhs altogether for the patient. Then if this is such a simple secret, why isn't it used? Because I really do not know. I'm just wondering.
So you say only the cost of the machine, Radha.
No. See, if a heart lung machine can be made use of in for HiPEC, when many must be using, there should be some special advantages HiPEC machine has. And another thing we are always worried about is the fumes that come out. Because there are cytotoxic, young women should not be around. Anesthetists also, protect them. The surgeons will be more there when this procedure is going on. That's interesting. And Shankar, you have literature on using heart lung machine for HiPEC?
No, sir. Actually, that's a learning point for me today for today's this session. Probably I have to talk to we can
we should check whether there is literature in there, because
so if that's possible, I think that should be a cheap alternative.
yeah, because it's available. Heart lung machines are available everywhere and not used these days by cardiac surgeons most of the time.
No, but for valves we have to use.
At least they can be put to some good use here. That's a good point, sir. I think there's something which we need to.
That's a good improvisation we have learned today. Yeah.
Any comments on the questions or comments from the audience?
The question of right hemicolectomy, upfront right hemicolectomy and appendicectomy converting into right hemicolectomy, how many of you would prefer upfront right hemicolectomy? How many of you will decide as a later surgery?
Yeah, we'll ask Dr. Ravichandran to come in. After that, we'll take the Ravichandran, sir, your experience. Yeah, Bhaskar. Kanan's question.
I would not do a right hemicolectomy upfront. I told you, my policy is to remove it with the portion of the cecum always, to wait for the biopsy. And because once you do a right hemicolectomy, after that there is tumor there, operating in the liver, because you are sitting on vessels, many other things.
Even Pradhan? Yeah, Pradhan, regarding upfront right hemi.
No, upfront, if the size is more and if you expect there is a spillage during surgery, I think we will do it. Otherwise, if the appendix size is smaller, the base is free, we will do appendicectomy, and the piece of the appendicular stump is sent for frozen section. That is not showing any lesion, no reason to do a hemicolectomy.
And I don't know, for some reason, I think our threshold is very high to do a radical procedure or even a right hemi for a particular pathology. If you feel that there's a mucosal appendix, unruptured, and the base is free, we'll just simply do a appendectomy and a frozen. And frozen shows that the base is involved, then only we think there's no cecectomy. It's just go and do a right hemicolectomy. Take.
I also, if the base is free and it's unruptured mucosal, I'll stop with the appendicectomy.
So we can't upfront, just going in right hemi is not a very commonly done thing.
No,
But only thing is,
Yeah.
sometimes you see surprises, when surgeon's brother I operated,
Oh.
he was called to do only diagnostic lab. I said for a TB abdomen, I felt a diagnostic lab will be very dangerous for that patient. I did a mini laparotomy. It was fully started with tubercles. So then with the biopsy, he was treated with the ATT and he improved. After 3 months, he developed intestinal obstruction. And when we opened, the abdomen was absolutely clean, no tubercles at all. There was a ring in the ileocecal region. So, we like any other TB abdomen, I did a limited right hemicolectomy, but unfortunately, the biopsy came as adenocarcinoma. So, why, even it may be a 1%, but why take a chance?
okay. Actually, this limited resection is little difficult to perform rather than a right hemicolectomy. That's my personal opinion. Because the ascending colon is a very short length. It's just 15 centimeters. So doing a limited resection is always more complicated than doing a right hemicolectomy. That's my personal opinion.
Ravichandran, sir.
Sir, we have encountered 2 cases there in Stanley when I was there. So what has happened for the first case? Is it audible there? Yeah. For the first case, Professor Surendran invited some faculty from Adyar Cancer Institute. And the senior surgeon did that surgery for this pseudomyxoma peritonei, and he took longer time. And in between, I think the surgery went on there for about more than 6 hours. And after that, they closed and they have sent for. After in the post-operative period, the patient was sent for chemotherapy. Then subsequently, the follow-up was not there. The second case which we encountered is another pseudomyxoma peritonei, for which there was an extensive adhesions and difficulty we encountered, and it was an incomplete peritonectomy.
Okay.
Yeah, these are only 2 occasions where I have seen. Yeah.
Actually, it has to be this peritonectomy should be done by a surgeon who is interested in doing peritoneal surface malignancy, and it has to be planned, and you have to have all the gadgets, and it will take time. It will take time because if you see the time now, it anywhere takes time between anywhere from 8 hours to 12 hours.
Well, exactly, Shankar. It is very difficult to even do the peeling of this peritoneum.
Yeah.
And it always will not come in a successful manner always. We can probably leave some part of peritoneum which has been with the tumors.
Actually, there is a YouTube video from Sugar Baker himself that everyone can watch.
Okay.
He demonstrates the peritonectomy. Very beautiful video, and he uses what is called as a ball-tipped diathermy. The tip of the diathermy is a ball-tipped one, and he just runs the ball over the peritoneum, and that maintains a nice hemostasis, and the tissue plane opens up. That's what that is shown in the videos. And of course, Sugar Baker, they do nearly 70 peritonectomies every year. It's a very high volume center.
Shankar, if you really talk in terms of this radical peritonectomy, it's easy for colonic or gastric metastasis where the nodules are thick and there's no mucus, no jelly. In a jelly abdomen, everything is jelly, and there's nothing solid on the peritoneum, not thick, and then the technique is not that comfortable.
Actually, for a CA colon, the primary indication for doing a cytoreductive surgery is for pseudomyxoma peritoneae, sir.
Right.
This concept has been extrapolated to colonic malignancy, and now they are extending into the CA stomach also in some cases. It's still experimental only. So that's the thing. And when you do it for colonic malignancy, you have to do the peritoneal carcinoma as index.
Right.
Because in pseudomyxoma peritoneae, the bowel will be usually spared.
Right.
The small bowel, mesentery, everything will be spared. So you can do an omentectomy. You can remove both the domes of the diaphragm, peritoneum, Gleason's capsule, cholecystectomy, splenectomy, and right hemicolectomy. And if it is a woman, you can do a bilateral salping. It takes time. You have to clear the pelvic peritoneum, everything. But to doing for a colon cancer, you have to have a favorable peritoneal carcinomatous index.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, when you operate these people much later, you find nice peritoneum has come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thick peritoneum. Thick end.
The explanation for that is that's the basics of surgery, which they say peritoneum heals by metamorphosis of adjacent mesenchymal cells. It doesn't heal from end to end. That's what when you close the abdomen, there is no need to suture the peritoneum. The peritoneum will heal. It will heal in a matter of 24 hours. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Any further comments from the audience?
Dr. Shankar, other sources ovary, ovary and appendix are the two common causes of pseudomyxoma peritoneae.
Actually, 90% of the pseudomyxoma peritoneae is appendix only, madam.
Appendicular, yes.
But these pseudomyxoma will also involve the ovary as a secondary manifestation. Actually, primary mucinous neoplasm of the ovary presenting as pseudomyxoma is very, very rare.
Rare, okay.
Yeah, yes.
Because
Sometimes gallbladder malignancies also can present the pseudomyxoma peritoneum. I mean, one of the uncommon causes of pseudomyxoma peritoneum. But as you rightly say, appendix is the culprit almost all the time. Right? Dr. Ravi Shankar, you want to have final word?
Yeah. See, it's a very difficult surgery, sir. It is always a difficult surgery. And to get a cure, probably it will take longer time. And we have to probably make a good attempt.
Dr. Ravi Shankar, it actually is a pleasure to have you. A CEO sitting in appendicular discussion is quite quite a sacrifice, I should say.
Because I know for HIPEC we use our machine. And
Anyway, you gave away the secret so we can approach the cardiac surgeons.
Yes, you must.
I'm able to see my brother.
Nice, ma'am. Thank you. So, Shankar, if there's no further comments, I think this is quite an interesting case, and there are many points to learn.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.